Welcome to the podcast audience. Wait.
Yeah, it's early enough that we could start over.
Let's just start it. Thank you.
Welcome to the
Welcome to the podcast, consumers. I'm your host, Cranciosis.
And I'm Goy.
This is a special one because this is going to be part of a college project.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm going to be presenting this for like a huge grade.
Nicer.
With the visuals and everything. We're going to try and keep the cursing to a minimum for this one. But today's topic, I'm going to just ask the question. Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you think that technology is moving too quickly?
I believe it's moving at a decent pace, but compared to our imagination, it's not.
Interesting answer. I will agree with the way you said it, but in the way that I'm presenting it, I'm saying that technology has moved too fast for us to keep up with, because we haven't set up the means to keep it in check, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, just to be specific, we're going to go over some vocabulary, if you will. The vocabulary is going to be probably words you guys haven't heard of. They're not used too often. The first one we're going to go over is going to be Gerontocracy, or Gerontocracy.
What does that mean?
Well, to understand what it means, let's start off by a hint. And it has to do with our medical field and the technology that has advanced in our medical field. So, our medical field obviously has advanced like crazy, you know? We now have the ability to let people survive for a much longer period of time than ever before.
And that's even without them being sick. Them just existing within this time period, and because of the things we do, like immunizations and stuff like that, and just general.
Yeah, so
cleanliness.
Technology advances at the same pace for the world, but countries receive technology based on whether they're primary or tertiary. So, for instance, the latest thing when it comes to health technology in America, for instance, or a primary world country in general, is prosthetics. We're advancing prosthetics like at a much quicker pace.
Oh yeah, it's unfortunately, like I said, it's not where we want it to be because of our imaginations, but it's getting there. It's taking some time, but it's getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting there. We're also studying bacteria and things like that. But in other countries, in tertiary countries like Honduras and things like that, they are also seeing technology advance, but at a different pace. We now have, I don't know if you know this, but we have cures for Elephantiasis now.
Oh wow, that's great, because that disease is kind of horrifying in every way.
Oh my god. But now, it's not that bad. And because of this, we're seeing people live for a longer period of time with healthier lives, you know?
Right.
Now, here's the kicker. This technology has advanced already too quickly for us. You want to know how?
Yeah, I'm curious how.
Well, we have yet to advance ourselves in a means that will keep us from becoming stagnant. To explain, just for some background, Let's just point out our Senate or our Congress. Many of the major federal courts, the people that work there, I don't know if you've ever paid attention to their ages, they're all pushing like 70 and 90. And it's because they don't have term limits. Yeah. So we're seeing a very large amount of the elderly in office, and that is where the term gerontocracy comes from.
And, you can say, oh, you can always teach a new or old dog new tricks and things like that. Based on what I've seen while working out here, no, you cannot. Old people do not get it. I know that sounds kind of mean. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there who can learn it and get it, but they were probably there at the start of when that technology started to go off and they wanted to learn it. Mm-hmm. Your, 70, 80-year-olds, they were already 40, 30 when it came out. They just didn't care.
Well, I think what I'm going to get at is that this is bad for, in general, development.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Development of a nation, development of a people, development of a generation. See, it would be very easy. Well, let's start off with the devil's advocate. The reason why we need these elderly individuals in the federal government as the judges and things like that is because the amount of learning that it takes and the amount of interest in those positions is scarce.
Yes.
However, I will stop playing the devil's advocate now and say
right then and there
and say this is not a problem if the jobs are available. And
we discussed that they would be if you kicked them out. They had term limits.
I will go back to playing devil's advocate now. If you put term limits on them, it'll place these older judges, these federal judges, into the palms of the private section, the business people.
Which is bad.
However, I will stop playing devil's advocate now and say, if jobs were available, such as using them as a sort of organic library to teach, to be able to teach the younger generation based on their own experience, this would keep them out of the private sector and keep us from being stagnant.
Have some sort of mentorship program?
Yes. And the reason why this is important, the reason why stagnation is bad, is because we're seeing it in general. Mm-hmm. If you look around, states are constantly legalizing marijuana or changing their stance on marijuana, just as an example. And this is an important thing to notice. The reason why it's so important to notice is because it is indicative of a stagnant upper class. The upper class being, obviously, within a gerontocracy, the elderly. And being elderly does not mean you're a good person, you're a reliable person, or anything of the sort. But
it equally doesn't mean you're bad either.
No, it doesn't. It just means that you're old.
Yeah. You've been through some stuff. You've seen some things. You have wisdom. You may not necessarily be, particularly intelligent within certain aspects, but you can recognize, hey, the last time we did something like this, bad stuff went down. Let's not do that again.
Yes, and that is the issue that we face with stagnation, is that we don't see this. This also has an effect on our social aspects of just life in general. For instance, because of the way that marijuana was looked at back then, it is still considered
demonized, honestly.
Yes, it's really demonized for no reason. If it's demonized and it's not considered bad for a younger generation, we have conflicts of interest that happen. And these conflicts can escalate. That's why we have federal raids on marijuana shops, for instance. It's why it's still looked down upon to have tattoos or piercings, even though the science has come out that you're not going to be a bad person if you have these things. It doesn't matter. To them, I would say standing by it is part of their understanding.
not just that, but it was kind of like shown via like, you know, greaser types or gangsters or things like that, that having them is like, oh, I'm a bad person, ooh, spooky, and then like the media just kind of grasped onto that and kept doing it, so they latched down to that idea and just let it go.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably true. Another aspect of this is that as we age as a society, our steps in trying to remain non-stagnant are almost non-existent. We still have things like daylight savings time, even though daylight savings time is, well, it's not useful anymore. It doesn't really make a difference any longer.
Yeah, it's just really not useful anymore. It doesn't...
Our next step is those term limits, which our term limits aren't existent. We need term limits on things, and that will keep us from being stagnant. When you have a ruling class that is as young as the technology becomes, stagnation is harder to achieve, because people are more used to the technology.
Yes. Not just that, but I feel like with the older crowd, yes, they are wiser, and they've been through, you know, however many years of stuff and seen culture and...
But wisdom is not intelligence.
For lack of a better word, memes, like the classical definition of it, come and go.
The synthetic organs of a society.
Yeah. The issue only happens when they don't exactly keep up with it. Yeah, I'm not saying they have to, but they have to definitely understand and know the ins and outs. They don't have to become one with it, they just have to get it.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Being able to stay away from stagnation in general, that wisdom, they don't have to not exist with one another. They can coexist. Wisdom can be non-stagnant. It's quite simple. And it just begins with people realizing that they aren't perfect and then moving towards allowing a non-cultural... I keep using stagnation, I want to use something else. Stops it from getting stale. Like bread, like soggy bread. Keeps the universe from toppling over.
Yeah, murdered, if you will.
Yeah. Murder. So, when you have these aspects, what's a good term for it? What can we use when these variables happen, especially, let's say, politics outpiecing medicine, we have these issues that happen, these social issues that can affect how people are raised. You can have a group of people that, you know, are raising kids in a society, and they think, oh yeah, you know what? It's not that bad to have tattoos. But if it's looked down upon to have tattoos by society and not by a person's parents, how is that person going to get a job if they get a tattoo? Sure, their parents going to accept them, but is Mr. Bob Mr. Bob Dobbs gonna accept them? And the answer is usually no. When you can't think of yourself as wrong, then you come to conflicting issues, because you can't really determine someone being wrong or right by any more than what the people say. And when stagnation happens and one group of people by age says that another group of people by age is wrong, we have come to the crux of a gerontocracy.
We've come to an impasse.
We have come to an impasse. The next bit, if you will, of technology advancing too quickly will, I guess, also be based around politics and medicine, but in a different light. To preface what I'm going to say next, I don't necessarily have an issue really with the current state of affairs. How about that? I'll remain unbiased.
Okay.
Though we have good healthcare. Our politics don't have regulations on the medical field. So,
which doesn't sound good, even though I don't know much about it. Even to me, that's like way to go.
We have laws that stop people from putting things in our vaccines or in our medicines that we don't want them to put in. But there are no laws that go about saying, hey, well, what if we need testing done and we don't have test subjects? What if we have to use animals and they're not always accurate? We come to this situation where, because we don't have laws that place, maybe this is mad scientist material, we don't have easy access to testers, we constantly come into issues where medicines won't come out for a certain period of time, even if they're ready to be tested. Or we have issues where someone will own a patent on a type of medicine and they can charge a premium. This happened recently, if you remember the Martin Shkreli case.
Yeah, him and that delightful smile that only a...
Personally, I don't have anything wrong with Martin Shkreli.
Really? Okay.
But he brought up an issue that the entirety of the medical field has, and that's essentially this. Many of the medicines that we pay for are overpriced. The reason why they're overpriced is because they're deemed to be, by the people who manufacture them, valuable. And valuable to them means money. This is a generally...
So he's kind of just... He's proving a point in a weird way that, look what I can do that I shouldn't be able to.
Right.
Instead of just saying it.
He didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion, because other people do it. Just to preface, the amount of money it's cost to... Just so you can put this into aspects. You remember how I talked about elephantiasis earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elephantiasis is really interesting of a disease, but the cure is even more interesting.
Ooh.
The cure, so in the time that we've had elephantiasis being tested for, medicines that could cure it, well, we've actually cured already over 5 million individuals of elephantiasis. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much that has cost?
Higher than I can count.
Little more than $550,000.
That's pretty. That's a solid number. I feel
Yeah. For 5 million people, that's an unheard of amount. 5 million people that don't have health insurance.
Oh, then yeah, that's actually pretty incredible.
Do you know why? The amount of money it costs is actually they did it for free, but that's because the medicine actually only costs about 11 cents.
What is it?
I think it's like one special type of like fungal medication of some sort and an anti-parasite. Anti-parasitic medicine. Those things in America would cost like, I don't know, $50 a pill maybe?
Just because we said so.
Yeah. So, even though I will say capitalism is pretty cool, the reason why it's pretty cool is because in many cases it allows people who want to make technology move faster. It allows them to pour money into something to make technology faster. Even though, for a while, this means newer technology stays in the private sector, the richest of the rich. It means that it very quickly also advances, becomes easy to reproduce, and is moved into the public sector. However, again, because of the laws, we have these issues. The reason why I defend Martin Shkreli in this aspect is because what he did was take a disease that is pretty rare, at least, first of all, and was like, okay, I'm going to upcharge by like 5,000% per pill, and anybody who can't afford it can just get it for free.
Now, I never heard that part.
Of course you didn't, because disillusionism and, well, I mean, all sorts of other things. Even though it's not necessary, it is kind of legal to do propaganda. It's technically legal for propaganda. Businesses can totally make each other look bad and get away with it. Which is propaganda.
It's like corporate propaganda.
It's totally a thing. And, yeah, so because we have that issue, we have things like this happen, where business people will look bad, even though they aren't the first or even the only ones to be doing it. And this can damper the, technology in general.
So it's mainly just people not knowing exactly what to do with this new technology, and it's people taking advantage of that.
Yes, that's
to try to either show that, like, look, this can be done, we need to fix it, or just to be scummy.
Yeah. So, yeah, everybody thinks Martin Shkreli's a...
Yeah, because no one explained that last part. It was like, oh, you can't afford it here.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not gonna, because then they can't make money.
Yeah, that's true, because then no one would tune in about it. Granted, I would tune in more about it. Like, if you'd got the hook on me of, like, yeah, this guy's, like, charging millions of dollars for the cure to it. What? But if you can't afford it, he just gives it to you. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Let's move on to the next one. You ready? Mm-hmm. It gets better, or worse. Depends on how you're looking at it. So technology has currently advanced enough that we have high-speed communication. This is obvious. I'm making this via high-speed communication.
We're doing it right
on
now.
YouTube right now because of high-speed communication. We can gather information all over the web pretty easily. However, this has outpaced us in so many ways. We don't deserve this kind of technology. In fact, we still have people to this day that believe the Earth is flat. An interesting theory, if true, but I still can't, from my backyard, see the largest building in the world, which we would definitely be able to see if the Earth was flat. And the reason why we would be able to see that is because the human eye can pick up about 2 light years away. Don't know if you...
As evident by seeing stars.
Yes.
And
as evident by seeing stars and the sun.
And the moon.
You cannot see, like, if I'm standing on the beach, I still cannot see most of the city, or any of the city, really, from where I'm standing, regardless of whether or not there are, I don't know, buildings on a flat beach in Florida, which most of Florida...
is flat.
Spoiler alert, it's flat. We can't see the rest of the world. The Earth isn't flat.
My boy didn't see a mountain until I took him to a mountain.
California, right?
Yeah.
And I would have been able to see those mountains if the Earth was flat. But the Earth isn't. This isn't to convince anybody whether or not it's flat or not. It's just an example. We do not have laws. We're going back to laws. We do not have laws that mandate whether or not people are able to create such hysterical conspiracy theories as the flat Earth theorists. Now, some people might say, this would be like Big Brother, this is bad. But, again, there are ways to balance. Not playing the devil's advocate, you can just make people preface a thing by saying this is a conspiracy theory, or this is a theory and not fact.
Yeah.
Until proven fact, it's just a theory. But one thing that has been proven fact is, the Earth isn't flat. And yet, there are still people that believe it. And that's disappointing, if nothing else. And if something more, way more than just disappointing. Disgusting.
Yeah. Well, some.
In the context of this argument, though, let's focus a little bit. Not only has technology failed to keep us up with, those situations where we should be understanding these simple contextual ideas
I wouldn't
already.
say that tech's failed us in that aspect. I would say people have failed themselves.
Yeah, think so?
Yeah, because you can go out. Something I've noticed with like flat Earth people is that they have been like, oh yeah, the answers are out there. You just have to go out and get them and find the evidence. Well, likewise for a round Earth argument.
Yeah.
You can't look at one side without looking at the other.
But they do.
Yeah, they totally do. Just look at whatever supports their evidence.
Yes.
Without going back and looking with it.
Because of the way that we have no laws that mandate how the internet can sell to you, we've come across issues where we can kind of just sell people anything anywhere. And because of that, this creates echo chambers in the internet. When you think that the Earth is flat, or if you believe the Earth is flat, the internet will provide you with everything that you need to prove that the Earth is flat. I mean, not really, but, usually these people don't have that much brain power. This is evident. This is clear and evident because the internet...
I said that people fail themselves, and they look at whatever supports their argument and not...
Oh yeah, the echo chambers. The echo chambers of the internet. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous because they provide people with a sense of security with whatever falsehood they want to believe. And there is a lot of falsehood to be had on the internet. There's no laws that say, hey, you can't just do something like this and sell people conspiracy theories just because it'll make you money. There's no law that says if you're making a conspiracy theory or if you're just creating this up out of your mind and it's not factually proven, you have to preface it with, well, what I just said.
Yeah. But the thing is, eventually that will get thrown to the wayside the bigger it gets. Is yeah, I believe in this. And unfortunately, it's a lot of belief. It's a lot of, I don't want to chuck an entire thing under the bus, but I'll throw its foot under the bus, I guess. It's, some religion gets in there.
Yeah.
And kind of muddles up the stuff. Muddles up the science. Because it's okay if you believe in God and all that, but we could still look at the reality of our world with science and be yo, it's right there. That doesn't denounce any of, what someone believes religiously. It just means that this exists as well, probably due to their God, if they want to look at it that way.
Well, I was going to get to that in a moment. But on a just as pressing note, we also have the scum.
Ooh,
the losers of wars. If you don't know who I'm talking about them Nazis who are still around
for some reason,
even though they lost. Victors get to choose how history tells the story, but losers.
Them Nazis. Quick little rant. What I find bizarre is that somehow there are Nazis in America that were born here, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. It's but we fought against them. You were born in the country that was against them.
And not only were they against them, we beat them.
Yeah, Russia, ourselves, Europe, we went in there.
Yeah, we destroyed them. And that's probably the most interesting part to me, is that they exist and we beat them. Not only were they wrong, but they were so wrong, they all lost. And if you're so wrong that you lose, that's when you're really a loser. These are all thoughts, right? These are all ideals that have outpaced technology. They move too fast. We don't understand how to control our tiny little monkey brains. And we make mistakes, if you will. But these mistakes can be more damaging than just to technology and our stagnation. This ends up going even deeper into, well, as you might have considered, our relationships, our societal outlook and diversity. The whole reason why Black Lives Matter exists because, well, I would blame it on technology if you hadn't have guessed. It is our fault to get everyone. We all failed to do something. And perhaps I don't mean you or I specifically, but definitely our society has failed us. Let's see. Where can I go from here? Oh, I know. misinformation. And I'm not just talking about...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, misinformation is big. Just so you know. And the reason why I think misinformation is big, the biggest part of it, I think goes down to the fact that even though we have all this technology at our hands, we still want to rely on trusting ourselves.
Yeah.
It would be easy for someone to understand that, let's reference a recent thing in the internet, Tide Pods.
Okay.
Tide Pods got popular. For those of you that don't know, Tides got super popular all of a sudden because
As a
kids were
snack.
as a snack because kids were eating them. Now, what I saw a lot was people saying, I can't believe millennials are doing this. Even though the millennial cutoff date was in 1997. So, even though the technology exists, even if you were poor, you could get a library pass. Go to the library, access a computer, use a computer. You could look up at any point what's the cutoff age, or what makes you a millennial, what makes you a Generation Z, or whatever it's going to be called next, founders, whatever.
What kind of name is that? That's sketchy.
Generation X, boomers. You could look up all this information, yet people refuse to. There's no good reason for them to do so either. They just don't do it. And this can lead to misinformation. Not only that, but again, going back to the conspiracy theories, because we don't have laws about what is and what is not marked as fact, marked as theory, we have places like Tumblr or Twitter or Facebook, media websites, social media websites that are probably the biggest perpetuators, proprietors,
Perpetuation is the only one.
perpetuators of, well, simply misinformation. Even though it
harkens back to that thing with whatever his name was. They hear one part of the story and that's what they focus on. They don't tell the rest.
Yeah.
Or they focus too hard on one element and don't step back and like, wait a minute.
Yep, that's exactly it. But these laws extend. These issues extend past social media. It is very common for news networks to not only just be biased, but to not be worth their weight in gold at all.
Well, actually, no, they can be because people will buy them off.
What do you mean?
Well, companies and corporations and things will like buy them off. Like, don't talk about this, please. Don't talk about this.
No, that's what I'm saying. That technology has outpaced that, in the sense that.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. In that leaks and things like that can happen.
Well, no, not just leaks, just the fact that there's no responsibility for news if they're wrong. News stations to be wrong. CNN and Fox News are really bad at just getting a story out quickly, not getting a story out correctly. Because, I mean, who has time to be correct if your dumb needs to feed your kids or something like that? Who feeds kids?
What do you mean you eat? What's wrong with you?
I don't know.
And that in itself kind of like wraps back around to how cutthroat things have been, where it's like, I don't care, get the information out, we need our money.
Yeah, well, it's moreover an issue about this gerontocracy.
Yeah.
They don't think it's necessary to do this. They don't think it's necessary to do these things because they were raised to value the freedom of being wrong, or being intentionally wrong.
Well, I mean, you can be intentionally wrong all you want, but you gotta learn something from it and potentially learn not to do it again on the same subject.
But that's only a belief that you hold and I hold, and many of the people that we know hold. And I mean, that really counts for, like, honestly, that does count for, and the reason why it counts for is because it's not the current generation that is running the world. It is 2 generations beforehand.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 back.
2 or 3 is correct. The 2 is really it. The biggest issue, I feel, and it's a sad issue that I don't think will be solved in time. Generation X was born prior to 1980. I want to say 1989, but you know what? Because I have technology, because we're talking about it, we should not cause misinformation and actually say what exactly it is. Ooh, I am gassy. Let me just look this up real quick. Hey Google. You know Google is a verb.
Yeah, I could understand that.
You could donate.
Like, I mean, I guess in a weird way that makes sense for people that want to study it.
So my parents were actually born prior to that. How the generations work is actually usually one generation gives birth to the generation after the generation after them.
Wait, what?
So most boomers are responsible for millennials, and most Generation X is responsible for Generation Z.
Okay.
If this makes any sense, God bless me. Okay.
Like, I understood it, I just didn't fully get it.
Well, so millennials who are having births later are easier to explain. They are not giving birth to Generation Z. They are giving birth to the generation that will occur after Generation Z.
Okay, I'm seeing it now.
This is common, by the way. So, I don't know what came before boomers like that, so don't ask me smart questions like that, piece of... I will end you if you do that to me. But boomers weren't made by the generation before them. They were made by the generation before the generation before them. And as that continues, as that trend continues, right? That would be a trend. As that trend continues, because of the way health technology has advanced, the reason why gerontocracy is such a problem is because Generation X will essentially never be the ruling class. They just won't be able to do it. Millennials will take the mantle after, and that is not fair.
Well, hold on. That's fine-ish, because that's us, isn't it? Well, hold on, no, you have to grow up. Or no, you just have to be born in that time.
Yeah. It's based on when you're born, but you're really defined by when your generation is an adult. Weird, right?
Yeah.
So, even though it's all dependent on when you're born, it's really more on what you do as an adult.
Definitely, yeah. It's like the whole born thing. It's like, I don't have control over that.
You do have... Generativity is how you add on to the generation. And that can happen in many ways. Imagine that you take place in a protest right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're protesting guns, or the use of civilian-owned guns.
Hey, this sounds
that
familiar.
Would be generativity, because it is something that millennials have been fighting for a while, and they still are. So you would be donating to your generation, and in your mind, you would also be donating to the generation after you.
Because of whatever impacted it, yeah.
Right. Because of the way that our politics are, we have a stagnation in that aspect as well. And that's possibly the worst. Because nothing about our current situation can really be considered perfect by our standards. which means, by our standards, there is room for improvement. Like, just me and you, like, if marijuana was federally legal, that would be really nice. That's just right there, point in advance. I don't think celebrities should be able to take political office. But that's because I understand another aspect of the gerontocracy, and that's the, well, very real threat of idolatry. We idolize things too much, and let's say we're religious. Idolization is wrong. Especially in, well, one of the most popular religions in America, Christianity. Yet, we indulge in it at a constant rate. This is bad in many aspects, one of which being our obsession. Obsession is a good word for it. Our obsession with celebrities and fame is exactly what Augustine of Hippo was against.
That's lost on me. I'm sorry.
You don't know about Augustine? The famous Augustine? Joking.
I don't think so.
Augustine of Hippo was a man that was so revered by his writings and distaste for Rome's obsession with...
Wait, is that the guy that lived in a bucket?
No. No, but I know who you're talking about, and he's awesome.
Yeah, that guy's great. It's like a man is a featherless chicken, and he goes and finds the chicken, plucks it, throws it down, and breaks its neck. Behold a man!
Yep. No, Augustine of Hippo was very upset by the way Rome saw itself. It saw humans as the pinnacle to perfection, and that technology was, everything that could ever be asked for could be made through technology. And Augustine was like, we need to humble ourselves. This is not God's way, And just for reference, he was so revered by the rest of the world that at some point, the area that Augustine lived in was attacked by a large group of barbarians. They took all the women and burned all the buildings except for Augustine's church. Everything but Augustine's church burned to the ground.
Why didn't they choose to destroy him?
Because he was revered. He put into existence essentially everything that everyone had ever felt about the Romans. And he was a Roman. And not only a Roman, but a Roman, priest, Catholic, whatever. And he was like, no, we are wrong. Technology isn't what's going to save us. It's not what's going to help us. It's only made us more and more arrogant. And that, success comes from the amount of work you do, and fame is what matters in life. And that's kind of how we feel now, and it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wrong. Not only does technology not determine, those parts of us, but those who are strong are here to support those who are not bask in
the other way around.
Bask in their own. Yeah, the other way around. Oops, I cursed. I'll put that out.
You did a lot.
Have I?
Yeah.
I didn't notice. I'll have to edit a lot, but that's okay. I think my final subject is going to be about, well, I guess it's compensation, understanding about the damages that our technology can do in war.
Equally, you can do a lot of good, but
in war,
it's dependent on how it's used.
Well, let's just say in war, we now use highly advanced nuclear weapons, correct?
Yeah, hydrogen.
It's
pretty scary.
and things like drone strikes.
Yep.
In the past, there was a book written by a Sun Tzu on the art of war. Sun Tzu wrote, well, things that he wrote would probably not be looked upon with as much reverence as they were in the past. He explained that those who were, for instance, farmers, the civilians, it was important to keep people like them alive. Because not only were they innocent, but they were...
make food.
They had skills and things that could help a society. This has not been an idea that we have shared with him. This is evident in our attempts as much damage as possible in as short of a time as possible.
A slight counterpoint to that. Thank you. Thank you for waiting. Slight counterpoint to that. Yes, we do have these things that can just completely decimate everything, anything, in counties and things like that. But we made it at a time where I want to say, I can be totally wrong, we made it at this time where we needed a definitive exclamation point to stop the war. Oh boy, did we. The issue came when other people decided, we want one of those too. Why? Because you have one of them, and that scares us. So, when everyone starts to get them, it kind of renders them pointless, because, okay, I can kill you and you can kill me. You shoot at me, I shoot at you. Oh yeah, well if you shoot at him, I'll shoot at you, and then the next thing you know, everyone's goo, radioactive goo.
That's exactly why it was wrong.
Yeah, and
because how many people there were not part of the war, did not support the war,
yeah,
died.
But what I am saying is that you said like the reason it exists is to utterly and quickly destroy things, right?
Well, they were.
Yeah. At that time. Now they exist as a weird kind of shield.
I suppose.
Because we don't just throw those around anymore.
That's true. I mean, we have drones.
We don't even test
We use
them.
drones instead.
We use those, which are very, very precise. And dependent on what they're going after, they have a very specific payload.
That's true. I guess. That was my final point. Do you have anything to say?
Not really, no.
Alright.
We got a lot out today.
Yeah, we did. I think that'll be it. Thank you for tuning in to another podcast on your friendly local Channel 3.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, consumers think.
Which one of yous, that's good English. Those of you, there we go. Those of you that do, listening and tuning and things like that. Thank you. It's really cool that you just decided to listen to us talk about stuff and things like that. I'm probably going to put that more elegantly, but you get the idea.
Yep. Alright. Then I will end this with a thank you. Have a nice day. And remember, brush your teeth more than once a day, because apparently millennials only brush their teeth once a day.
Oh. Gross. Brush your ding-dong teeth, everyone.